righty. Good to see you this morning. Welcome to StoneBridge, to all our campuses this morning. Grateful that you're here. And I don't know, if you've been around here long enough, you know I have an affection for Chick-fil-A. I like Chick-fil-A a lot. I like their nuggets. I like the eight-piece. It's now named after me. I order that when I go in. It's 8-piece nuggets, waffle fries, and lemonade. And it's always awesome. It's always good. It's always clean. People are helpful, respectful. I just like it. And I've never had a bad experience, except for one time. One time I was super excited, oh yeah, I'm hungry. And so we decided to go to Chick-fil-A. And for whatever reason, whoa, there's nobody in the drive-thru. This is great. Pull right up, kind of waiting for somebody to say, welcome to Chick-fil-A. How can I help you? But nothing. I'm getting nothing. This is fast food. What's going on? Somebody should be, right? It's Chick-fil-A. All of a sudden I realize it's Sunday. No wonder nobody's there. I mean, they're closed. What is going on here? And I totally get it, that the owners of the company are Christian and that kind of thing. But my guess is they don't hire just exclusively Christian people. Why can't those people be working? Why can't they feed me, a pastor, on a Sunday after I worked, right? It's I'm looking forward to Chick-fil-A. I want Chick-fil-A. This would be great. But no. And I'm thinking, well, how in the world do these people make money? McDonald's is open, Burger King is open, all of them are open except for Chick-fil-A. They got to be losing boatloads of money because they closed down for an entire day. What kind of organization does that? But for the last 60 years, they have faithfully served their customers just 6 days a week and are doing incredibly well, expanding all over the country now. And it's an incredible organization. I guess that the people just kind of tried to do their very best to live out the instructions that they found from the Bible about keeping a Sabbath day holy by resting one day a week. Now, we are living in a fast-paced society. We move pretty fast anymore. And I am not suggesting that we go back to Little House on the Prairie. I don't think we should. I like fast cars. I like motorcycles. I like good, fast internet. I get frustrated, right? It's if it doesn't go quickly. I like the fact that I can get on a jet and fly thousands of miles and get there in a couple of hours rather than a couple of months that it would have taken, right? If we had to do it the old way. I like the speed and the pace of our culture now. Now, obviously, that brings with it all kinds of struggles as well. There's no doubt that many of you have been, you're doing great and you're pushing it hard and you're making money and you're wringing out a bunch of money every week and trying to figure out how to make more money and going that way. But we have kind of lost this topic that we're going to talk about today. We're in a message series called 4x4, 4-letter words, 4 weekends in a row. Looked at love and pray. Today we're going to look at rest. Next weekend, big one, hope. Everybody needs that one next week, okay? Hope is a big deal. Because obviously you know that, right? It's we're not finding hope in traditional things anymore. So where are we going to find it? So next weekend. Today we're going to talk about rest, and we forgot. We struggle with this idea of rest. And what does rest have to do with climbing and right? It's we'll find out today. Exodus 20, verse 8. Remember to observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. Top 10 list, right? This is top 10 commandment issue, right? Big deal to God. And many of you, I would say, probably struggle with keeping this one. But you're thinking, that ain't a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's not like thou shalt not murder. It's not like thou shalt not commit adultery. This is the Sabbath, right? How concerned is God about this one? I don't think I'm going to get in too big a trouble if I blow this day off, if I do whatever I want on that day, right? The commandment that God gives us was modeled by God himself in Genesis, right? 6 days of creation, 7th day he rested. And it wasn't because God was tired or he was living for the weekend. He wasn't like he got to Friday and go, hey, thank me, it's Friday, right? Thank you. So he's like, I can't wait because, I can't wait for the weekend, right? No, that wasn't it. And he wasn't tired. He was like, I don't need, you know what? He actually created something on the Sabbath. On the seventh day, he created Sabbath. He says, I'm going to give, this is my gift. This is my gift to human beings. I'm going to give you a day off. I'm going to give you a day of rest. Because I know I've wired you up in such a way that you're finite people, and your bodies and your soul and your mind all need to unplug for a little while. And I don't totally get it. Human beings are going to go, we're going to figure out, I got a whole week to figure out how to do work, but sometimes I need a sixth day. So I'm going to do 6 days of work, and then seventh day, right? And again, God just knows that's how we need to do life. Now, I'm not much of a car guy. I don't, when I was high school, it was kind of easy to work on cars. There was no computer stuff. You weren't plugging anything in. You could just change spark plugs and work on a carburetor and air filter and brakes and that kind of stuff. But now it is so confusing. And I leave it up to the experts. I just simply, I don't do any of that stuff. I don't know how to do that anymore. But what I have learned, that I don't want to visit my mechanic every week. I want my car to run all the time. I love cars, but I hate them when they break down. So what I have done over the last several years is follow the manual. When the maintenance schedule says, change your oil, I'm all over that. You bet, I'll do it. And I've just found if I keep doing those minor little things when you're supposed to, everything runs so much better. But we've been ignoring the maintenance schedule of our life. And no wonder we're breaking down. No wonder relationships, no wonder money, and no wonder everything. And again, this is a trust issue. We have to trust. Do we trust God with this? Now, some of us are struggling. Well, I don't trust God with my money. I don't trust him in a relationship. Why would I trust him with day off stuff? Well, how's that working for you? So if we follow the maintenance schedule here that God gives us, we're going to be able to climb up on we're going to climb up in our relationship with him. God created this day. He says, remember, by keeping it holy. It's a holy day. It's not a holy place. It's a holy day. It's a sanctuary of time and space. God rested, but he wasn't exhausted. He was not fried. He just was modeling for us what this means. Now, in Jesus' day, Sabbath keeping was massively important. Like, totally get into it. Like, a lot of rules about not working. And there was a lot of laws about since the Sabbath day is holy, we're going to really make sure. In fact, one rabbi actually taught that you could not eat an egg if the chicken had laid the egg on the Sabbath, because the chicken was working. Now, I think it would be a whole lot more work for that chicken to hold that thing in there. Right? Well, it's like poking it and like, what? What? So I'm thinking Jesus probably looked around and go, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. It is nonsense. And so Jesus taught that we were made for we were not made for the Sabbath, but the Sabbath was given to us. It was a gift to human race. And we can ignore this, but God says, here's the best way to restore balance, to gain perspective. Your body needs time to recover. Your mind needs time to recover. Your soul needs time to recover. So God says that we are to rest. Well, what are we supposed to do then? What does that mean, rest? Like, just veg out, get the remote, an alcoholic beverage? Well, let's find out. Reflection is a big part of Sabbath keeping. We're told in Genesis that God would look at his work every single day and reflect on it. Every day he created something, and then he said at the end of that was good. That was good. And then he got to the pinnacle of all creation, you and me. And he says, that's very good. So every single day, God took a moment to reflect on what he had done. At the end of each day, he reflected just for a moment and paused and looked around. When do you get those moments? Do you ever spend some time looking at what you did that day? Reflecting. Most of us don't like to reflect at all. Introspective work comes difficult for me. And God gives us the Sabbath moments during a day to look back. I was walking into our Mission Possible program on Wednesday nights, a wonderful program. If you have elementary kids, preschool kids, if you bring them here, you know it's high energy, a lot of fun, very creative experience. And I'm walking in as some parents were walking out, and the thing was going on, and there's lots of music and dancing and stuff. And it's really, and so these parents stop me and just say, "I love watching my kids worship. I love watching my kids worship." And what she was doing at that moment was just taking a pause for a second and reflecting on what God had done. And I don't know what her day was like up until that moment, but right now she was echoing the words of God, "This is good." And she would have never got that moment at home. It would just not have been there. That's why some of these things are super massively important, is because they're holy moments. Because I could have just said, you know what, I think I'm just going to veg out today. I need to rest. Well, I get that, but what breathed into her heart that day was not staying home. It was watching her kids worship. And she said this, "I love my church. I just love my church." A moment of reflection, a holy moment after a long day's of work, that hopefully we won't get too busy. And this is oftentimes what we say, "I'm just too busy to go to church tonight. I'm just too busy. I've been too busy all week. I don't think I'm going to go to church this morning. I'm just too busy." Give God a moment right like that. You're getting a lot done. Some of you are rocking it pretty good. You're running hard, scoring lots of runs. Your life looks very impressive. And on the outside, if we were to look into your heart, we might see a difference. But on the outside, everything looks good. But you don't think about God very much. Envy's become a real problem. It used to bother you, but it doesn't so much. You struggle knowing who your kids are anymore, and you don't love your spouse. You're highly successful, highly respected, highly influential, and massively empty. You stay so busy so that you don't have to look in. You don't want your eyes to see, and you don't want your ears to hear. When will you ever be still before God? Will you remember that eternity has been planted in your heart, that all of this stuff that you're working so hard for is just finite. It's just going to end someday, somewhere, someplace. It just ends up in a dumpster. And that it's just chasing after things. So spend some time reflecting. Also, Sabbath keepers know how to play. Recreation should be a part of Sabbath keeping. One of the gifts that God gives human beings, and it's displayed really easily in little children, He gives us the gift to play. Little girls can spend hours being a princess, and little boys can find a stick and spend hours slaying a dragon or shooting some bad guy. Now we're like, "Oh no, it's a gun." No, it's a stick that they are pretending. Their little boys are warriors. We may never have even introduced them to that concept, but for whatever reason, they have figured it out. This is a gun. I'm protecting the princess, my mom, from a dragon. It's amazing. I love watching my grandkids do this. It's super funny. We get to FaceTime them a lot. And so last night even, we FaceTiming. And Michaela says to us, our little granddaughter, she says, "Grandma, I'm going to show you ballet." Now, she's never done ballet. She doesn't take a class. She has no idea. I don't even know how she knows the word. But she's all of a sudden just twirling in front, right? Just twirling, doing ballet. And then her brother, who's her twin, jumps in and karate chops her. And of course, it's chaos at that moment, but all he's doing is just himself. He's just being massively himself. It's so fun. One time, Michaela was showing us, she was singing the Frozen song, "Let It Go," and she's gesturing, "Let it go, let it go." Then Caden, all of a sudden, decides to be a donkey. You know, it's just, who taught him that, right? He's just being himself. It's crazy stuff. Kids know how to play. We're going to go see them in a couple of weeks. I said, Caden, what do you want to do? He says, I want to play. That's it. He doesn't have an agenda. I just want to play. We as adults have forgotten that thing of joy in our life. I teach our Discovering StoneBridge class every other month. On our campus here, we have about 120 people go through that class per year. And one of the questions I always ask is, tell me what your hobbies are. And we go around the room. And I haven't done an exhaustive study on this, but I would say that 90%, easily 90% don't have a hobby. Or they'll say this, my hobby is my kids, which I think is very admirable to say. I'm not saying this, but it's also, eventually, and again, this is what's going to happen. They're going to leave. Right? That should be, yeah, woo, right? And I know it's like, oh, no, they're so beautiful and precious. Like, but they're not 17 yet. And they will make it easy for you to say, you're on your own. Good, way to go, right? But right now, you know, what I see a lot of parents in our little culture here is that we pour everything into our children, so we don't have time to do anything because we're running them in soccer and track and ballet and basketball and all that kind of stuff, and we don't have time. We haven't taken time for ourselves. So on our day of Sabbath, we're just running them around, and what we found out is that that's not been good for our souls either, and then you have let the inmates run the asylum. And everything revolves around them, right? So you got to be very careful. So you got to find some time to do something. For me, again, I've been where you're at. I used to watch my kids and do that stuff, my day off, to all those kind of things. So totally get that. But I would drag my kids to stuff I wanted to do. I want to go hiking today. Come along. They're like, okay, you know, we went to go hike. Or like, I'm doing photography. You come along. They just, because right? So I needed some time to refresh my soul in some capacity. For me, again, it's photography. I need a couple of hours on my day off to do some of that stuff. I get extremely bored if the weather's bad or I can't go do stuff and like that. And so somebody's like talking about me like, what would you do on your sabbatical? And I said, well, I would bring my camera somewhere. And but otherwise, if I can't do that, I will. Well, do you want to go back to school? Don't think so. I'm bored. Unless, right? And so for me, that breathes life. Or if I go on a motorcycle ride, all that kind of stuff helps me. I don't know what it is for you. Maybe it is cooking. You like to cook. You like to cook with other people. Maybe you like to sew, do some of that kind of stuff. Softball. I don't know what breathes life into your heart and soul, but there needs to be something that gives you that. Otherwise, when the kids leave, you will look at each other and going, I'm bored with you. And you know when a lot of divorce happens? As soon as that last kid leaves. Everybody's growing apart on their own way and have nothing. Our worlds have gotten smaller, not bigger, not more interesting. We've become less interesting. And so I'd be very careful. Again, part of Sabbath is play. It is play. So today, if on Sabbath day, you find a way to play, and I don't know what that is for you, but it is, and I would say, remember, though, that it is to keep it holy. There's a holiness issue here with Sabbath keeping. It's holiness issue. Remember the Sabbath, great, I can do that. Keep it holy. It's different than the way the rest of the world recreates and refreshes themselves. Something needs to breathe into your life, again, eternal kind of stuff. And so here you are today. You're Sabbath-keeping people. Now, for some of you, this is really a difficult hour. You're like, All right? You're already like, he's running a little long. Because it's hard to push the pause button. And you're thinking, as soon as I get out of here, I got to go make some phone calls, answer some emails, do some stuff. Your phone's going, right? And it's all, how am I supposed to? It's very difficult. You can be found everywhere now. It's just amazing. Sabbath keepers take a moment to remember And communion time for us is an incredible moment where we reflect and pause just for a second and pull away. I want to read just a portion of the favorite psalm that we all have, Psalm 23. But I want you to hear it as a Sabbath keeper, right? The Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. Isn't that great? Think about it as a Sabbath keeper. Because if the Lord is not my shepherd, I don't have all that I need, and I need to bust it all the time. But if the Lord is my shepherd, I have all that I need, which means, right, I can take a day. He lets me rest in green meadows, leads me beside peaceful streams. Remember that God wants to be your shepherd. Now, I know that can be bothersome for us because that means I'm a sheep. And what are sheep? They're dumb animals. They wander away. They get lost. They're not tough. Nobody picks the fighting sheep as the mascot. We will even choose a bunny, right? Or a monarch, a butterfly. Well, what do you think? Well, we could be a monarch or a butterfly or maybe a sheep. Let's go with the monarch then. Right? Seem tougher. And sheep get lost easy. They're not tough. They can't defend themselves. They're just like you and me. And again, when we tend to do with life our own without a good shepherd, we tend to wander. We get lost. We get confused. And I love the fact that Jesus is my good shepherd who will actually come and look for the lost sheep. Worship for us is an important time. Again, I think that when we sing these songs, it's a chance to ingest a little bit and digest a little bit about the goodness of God. I don't know if you do this. I have Sabbath moments. Like when I wake up in the middle of the night, it's 4:30. Does a worship song hit your head? It does me. All of a sudden, at 4:30 in the morning, I'm thinking, he's a good, good father. That's who he is. That's who he is. And I'm loved by you. And all of a sudden, right, what had prompted me to wake up, the shepherd's there. I have those moments all the time in which all of a sudden I'm singing this song or reflecting, and it calms my heart. Here's my heart, Lord, right? Here's my heart. There's moments of every day I need a second where I reflect on that, right? So that's what these worship songs are for you, so that you'll have a Sabbath moment, not just here during the week, but you'll have a Sabbath moment as you're going somewhere, right? In a second, we're going to have communion together. We're going to do it a little differently today. Not that we're going to pass trays, and there's a piece of bread and a cup of juice. Represents the body and the blood of Christ. This is our Sabbath moment here where we reflect on the eternal things that are going on. And what we're going to do a little bit differently today is we're going to push the pause button and really be quiet. So we're not going to serve communion for a second, and there's no singing or no music. And so it's just you and your thoughts. And that God is here with us, and you can talk to him and reflect a little bit on what happened in your week and where you're at spiritually. And I know it's going to seem like forever, but really it's just going to be a minute or so. And then our worship leaders are going to come and lead us and guide us through that. But I'm going to pray for a second, and then we're just going to be quiet. Today, God, we want to remember the Sabbath day, and we're doing our very best to keep it holy at this moment, to reflect on the fact that you are a good shepherd and that you give us all that we need, and that you lead us into green meadows and put at times by some quiet streams. You also will lead us through the valley of the shadow of death. We don't have to be afraid. And goodness and mercy are going to follow us all the days of our lives. We want to dwell in your house forever. So we will listen to your voice right now. These things we pray in Jesus. Amen.